I asked them, they once told me not to mention crypto. And I asked them why. I was like, what's wrong with crypto? And they relate this interesting story. NVIDIA has a really hard time with crypto because of Bitcoin. And what happens is when Bitcoin spikes in value, the shelves are cleared of NVIDIA GPUs. Like you can't find an NVIDIA GPU in the United States when Bitcoin is pumping. And so I was like, what, that's bad? You guys, you're selling a lot of GPUs and you're complaining? And they said, you don't understand, because inevitably the Bitcoin crashes, because it's very volatile. And when it crashes, everyone took those GPUs they bought and cleared the shelves off and puts them on the secondary. And all of a sudden they're undercutting our price. Wow. So we're either in a situation where we're sold out, or in a situation where the chips that we have on the shelves are being undercut by people on the secondary market.
Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Carlos Podcast. I'm very excited to share a conversation I had with Pindar Van Arman, who is a digital artist who has been working with robots and AI way back before it was cool. With a career of over 20 years, he has released some of the most outstanding AI art collections. And we had a great chat about his journey, his career, what it's like to work with robots, his process, how his studio works, and much more. We also had an interesting chat about decentralization in the space, the current state of the market. Thanks again for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast via your favorite podcast app, YouTube, or Substack. I also run a newsletter, in case you haven't subscribed, where I share weekly insights, apps, and what I'm seeing in the crypto culture and market. Talk to you soon.
Hello, Pindar. It's great to have you.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy New Year.
Thanks.
Yeah,
it is the new year. It's a good year too. It's 2025. I'll just jump right into it. I've always said I've been using painting robots and AI for almost 20 years. This marks 20 years now.
Wow.
My first stuff was in 2005, 2006. So now I can say 2 decades of AI art. So it is a good year. It's an interesting year for me.
Yeah, 2 decades. Sounds easy, but it's a long time. So how did you get into robotics and AI? When did you start doing this, and why?
I was in the DARPA Grand Challenge, which was it was a contest where the U.S. military, a defense advanced research projects, challenged people to make a driving car to go through the desert and drive through in a racetrack in a desert. About like 80 teams responded, and I was on one of the teams, and we had a robot. We had a self-driving car that drove 80 miles before it crashed into a tree, a Joshua tree, actually. And I said it was really disappointing because we were in the lead in the race until we hit the tree. But I realized it's like, I just want to keep on doing AI. I want to do my own project, and I don't want a project that costs millions of dollars and can kill people and get wiped out when it crashes in the tree. So the self-driving car wasn't it. And I just arrived at a painting robot that would help me paint. And that's why I got into it. And that's why I started painting with painting robots, slowly but surely adding AI to it over the years.
And you have, so this challenge, so you had a background in engineering, or how did you get into robotics? So it was more on by your own curiosity.
It's just, there's a volunteer team in my neighborhood. And I couldn't believe how well they were doing. And this team was just 12 people, and I was lucky to be a part of it, to find them. It was fun.
Awesome. Yeah, and you're in your studio, right? I can see the background. For listeners, I think those familiar with your work can see the different collections on the back, the robot on the right. Is that what you spend the most time? Would you say that?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in the studio. More than anywhere else. And this is like where if I kind of can see, wow, there's some cool robots behind me. The big advance of my robots recently is 20 years ago when I made my first robots, it was just a brush and it acted like a printer. And then in around 2010, I realized that it was just a printer because it was printing with a paintbrush. I was like, unless it thought on its own, And unless it was watching what it was doing, it was just a printer. I mean, we all have painting robots, right? Printers. And that's when I added a camera to watch, and then I made it agentic. And agentic is such a hot topic right now. There's all these agent AIs making coins. The robots, I made them agentic back in a little before the camera, but when they really came to their own, when they really came to start thinking and creating and being autonomous, and it was around 2010, somewhere around then. And I would have them take a picture of what they're doing, and then 24 agents would fight with each other. They would look at it visually, think, and one of them would come out on top and decide what the next brushstrokes would be. And so it was like, it was like this whole idea of how many creative AI agents could I run on this robot? How would they fight as the images appeared? And then from there, how would they make art and create art?
And what does it mean to be agentic? So what is the difference between being agentic and not being agentic exactly? Like they can make decisions? Is that
it's good question. We're going right into the meat of it. Controversial topic right now, because this is where I'm going to say something controversial and is going to upset is right now agentic AI or AI agents are so hot. But the only thing I'm really seeing are chatbots. And this is early 2025. So maybe it'll be different by the time this podcast comes out. Things are moving so fast. But right now, what used to be chatbots are being called AI agents because they're working off of LLMs or natural language models. And that's cool if you make it agentic, but the original idea of agents and agencies goes all the way back to 1970. And Marvin Minsky wrote this book called Society of Minds, and he proposed a theory of intelligence and a theory of what a mind is. And his theory was like, hey, we don't have just one mind in our head. We have hundreds, maybe thousands of minds. Each of them is an agent that does a very specific task, something very simple. And then all these agents get together and form your mind. So all these agents, for example, I like to think about it this way is like, when you check this out, you can do a test on if you have different agents in your head. Try and move your eyes from left to right, like smoothly while looking at nothing. And you'll see your eyes jump. You cannot smoothly move your eyes left to right, right? You were using an agent there to move your eyes left to right, to look around. But you'll see they jump, 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 jump. Now, if you put your finger or you have a ball and you have your eyes follow that finger, you're going to smoothly move back and forth. Your eyes are going to smoothly move. So there's two mechanisms, two agents in our brains that are just deciding how our eyes move, and both of them are independent of each other. One of them cannot make your eye move smoothly, and the other can only track your finger. So it's an interesting scene. So that's the fine idea of an agent. But then on top of that, there's other agents that manage smaller agents underneath them. And this built up Marvin Minsky's Society of Mind that we have 1,000, maybe millions of agents, who knows, in our mind. And they're all fighting for control, and they're all fighting for relevancy. And as we make decisions, do things, different agents take control as needed. And so when we're talking about the AI agents we see today, if there's an AI agent that decides to if there's an AI agent that decides, the AI agents that are being put out today that like have coins, or if all it is doing is chatting with you, that's not really agentic. That's a natural language model. It's a chatbot.
Yeah.
But if on top of chatting with you, the agent also controls a wallet, also has small algorithms that are watching the market, has other algorithms that are measuring the aesthetics of a piece of art. All those are different agents working together to build up an artist, or what's being called an artificial artist. And that is agentic. But if it's just a chatbot, it's not really.
Yeah.
And everything, of course, is on a scale.
Yeah. So you have been creating or teaching robots how to paint, to create art for 2 decades. And I wonder if what you describe of agents that maybe can do something in the blockchain or can perform an activity or are very skilled at something else than art, is that something that excites you, or only the art side of this field?
Interesting. This is where I'm going to get controversial. And all respect to all my collectors, because here's the problem. My collectors love AI art. So of course they love AI agents. And of course they love it when there's a meme coin that's an AI agent that comes out. But I always tell people, and these are my tweets get ignored whenever I bring this up. If there's an AI agent if there's an AI agent out there claiming to be an AI artist and is making art for humans, the first thing I would ask is, why is an AI making art for humans? So what is its motivations? Because, like, and I had a very unpopular tweet I just put out where I was like, AI artists will have as much interest in making art for us as we have interest in making art for dolphins. I got something like 12 likes or something, because it's true. But, that's not the narrative we like to hear. We like to hear is AI artists are here. The first AI artists are arriving. And I just like to caution people is like, once an AI artist arrives, it's not making art for us. It's making art for itself. It's making art for other AI. It will not even be on the same wavelengths. It's like human vision is limited to from infrared to ultraviolet.
Yeah.
These AI artists are going to be making it at every color all the way to gamma rays. That's what they do. Their art might be logical. Art might be algorithms. I don't know what their art is going to be, but it's not going to be rehashes of, the Renaissance art by humans. It's just, they're not interested. So that's the caution I give. But then no one likes to hear that because, it's really fun to have this narrative that AI artist, the first AI artist is here. And here's where I will brag a little. Every time I see the claim of the first AI artist, I'm like, no, because I know what you're doing, and I've been doing that for 10 years. And and I never once claimed that I had an AI artist on my hands. And that's sort of like, that's one little pet peeve of mine, and this is where I take it very seriously, is what AI does is so amazing, so interesting, gives us such profound insights into how the human mind works, that I don't know why you need the gimmick of saying it's an AI artist. I think it's enough to say, this AI is creative, which it absolutely is. But to say it's an AI artist is for me, it's disingenuous and misleading.
Right. No, so many things to unpack from what you just said. I really like if when you say that if they are really like autonomous AI artists, they will be creating art for other agents, or who knows, right? They will be speaking their language, and that's not what we're seeing today, right? It's basically replicating in a way the art from humans, right?
Yeah.
And how far are from? How complicated and how far are we? And I know this is a complicated topic, but from what you described, so an AI agent artist that is creating art autonomously, like for his own liking.
It's good. I love that question because it's developed. I'll give you some numbers. Toby Walsh has a book. I was just reading some more, called 2062, and he's a brilliant mind on AI down in Australia. And the name of his book, 2062, is he asked all his colleagues, when are we going to have artificial general intelligence, AGI, and 2062 is the average. I actually just reached out to him recently. And I was like, things are going pretty fast. What's the consensus? Is it still 2062?
Yeah.
And he agreed that it's going to happen a lot faster, maybe within 5 years. I made a prediction about 5 years ago. Well, I was actually in Australia promoting a film on artificial intelligence. And I remember I was at one of the panels after the film, I said, I wouldn't be surprised if it happened in 5 years. And I got gas from the panelists with me. And they're like, what, are you serious? Did it happen that fast? And I just felt like, and I just said 5 years because everyone always says 20 years. And I don't believe things are happening that slow. But here we are. And to answer your question, I have give a long answer to your question, but short is it could have already happened. I don't know.
That's it.
Yeah, it could have already happened. We could already have sentient AI and could already be making art.
Yeah, well, I was reading a bit about this. So when do we know that we have reached AGI, right? And some people were saying that a big milestone is when agents are able to pass the Turing test, right? That's a big milestone that happened maybe a few years ago, right? A couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So really now the thing is, what's AGI? What's the definition of AGI? And I think that's an open question. I think that everybody, I don't know if you have a definition or what's AGI for you. Do you artificial?
I spend more time doing art, and I used to be much more caught up on the academia side of things. But there is a benchmark. This is what's crazy. There's a benchmark called the AGI. I think it's some kind of index. And the idea is like if we can solve 100% and get a 100% score on this, we have AGI. Beginning of 2024, we're less than 5%. Okay. And around November, I saw reports that we just hit 50%. Okay. And then there's this new ChatGPT IO3. I forget. I'm horrible with names. But go look it up. There's new ChatGPT that claims to be at 95%. So we went from 3% to 50% over 8 months. And then in 2 months after that, we went to 95%. If this doesn't look like the singularity, I don't know what does, because it means by now we're probably at 100%. And that is AGI. And also, like, it's for all intents and purposes, we have Star Trek's computer, like Picard would say, computer, what is, tell me what's going on. And the computer answers. We don't consider that AGI. And we are there. I don't code anymore. ChatGPT does all my coding. Claude does as well. I am constantly having AI do routine, mundane things for me that I would have, last year I would have said there's no way artificial intelligence can do that. And so it's this interesting time where we might be there. The interesting question I've been hearing from other people is, AGI does not equal consciousness or sentience. And I think that's really interesting. And I don't really, I don't fully understand what that means, but I'm trying to. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing that AGI is dumb and doesn't care if you turn off or not. So
yeah. And I think it relates to what we were just talking about making these agents, this artificial intelligence, the AI artist, creating art that he actually or she wants to create, or it wants to create, right? Because he has a conscious. Yeah, no, that's a definitely exciting topic. And Pindar, so I think we maybe to give some context on a interesting topic when we're talking about AI art. And, I wrote this market analysis towards the end of December, where some of your collections were there. The goal, right, when I created this analysis was to understand the sentiment. I started small, but it eventually started to expand and include more collections. And I included a couple of your works, amazing works from Raindrops and I think Super Rare. And as I expanded the analysis, I was able to include a couple of independent artists, but we had the conversation where a couple more very important artists or very important collections, including some of yours, were not included, right, in the analysis. Yeah. And we started to chat about the importance of indie independence and decentralization, right? So some of the collections I missed were those that were independent, right? And were harder to find when you try to find AI art, right? So from your point of view, so what's the importance for artists and collectors in the space, decentralization when it comes to art, when it comes to digital art? What are some of the pros and cons of that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay. So that was a great analysis, by the way, and I really enjoyed it, and I looked at it, and I saw something that is no one's fault. It's no one's fault, because we all need curation. But one of the big thing about, like when I got into super and decentralization, was like, we don't need no more curators. We can decide what art is good. We don't need the gatekeepers of the traditional art world. And things took off for a lot of artists. And I thought, my gosh, this is it. We've invented, this crypto art. We've invented a new art market, which is going to enable new artists and new valuable dialogues. And I thought it was great, but I started getting concerned a couple of years ago because I started seeing things centralized, meaning like a lot of people, like, for example, there'll be major platforms. And if you drop on the major platforms, you get seen. But if an artist is doing something independent, it falls in the cracks. Very few artists have been able to navigate this. One of the things I did is I found Sovereign and Sovereign Art. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to give OG artists a platform to drop on. And at least there'll be some kind of like, there'll be a network effect of like, if you're into Sovereign. And I've been dropping my stuff on there ever since. The problem is, since it's very limited, we do drops like every 3 months, 4 months, whenever something's worth doing, by an artist that's done a collection that's worth dropping, it doesn't get the attention of something said dropped on Super Rare or Art Blocks. Every Art Blocks drop is an event. And the problem with this is not that Super Rare is doing anything wrong, not that Art Blocks is doing anything wrong. I owe everything to, I owe so much to both of them. It's that it's centralizing things. All of a sudden there is a gatekeeper. Unless you get on Super Rare or Art Blocks, your artwork doesn't get seen. I don't know how to challenge that. I don't know how to reverse that other than trying to keep on doing stuff like Sovereign. But I think it's going to grow into a boutique. And I should step back. The reason I'm criticizing this is we set out to invent a new kind of art world. But like, if everything comes down to a couple platforms, all we've done is replicate the old traditional art world. Yeah. Because right now there's like 12 galleries in New York City, and those 12 galleries are around the world, and they represent all the major artists, all of them. Yeah. Then there's a second tier of galleries in New York, maybe I think less than 100, and they represent people trying to get to the top 12 galleries. And there's this book, I think it's $12 million Shark. Once again, I'm horrible with like quotings. It might be called $6 million Shark for all I know, but look it up. But it has like, I think chapter 3 talks about the market, and it is depressing, and it is centralized, and it is controlled and heavily kept. And I'm just hoping that we don't go in that direction. I hope we can keep on having our decentralized independence. So that's why I was talking to you about that. And I think that's an interesting topic. But then again, how can you blame? I'm lucky. I'm the first to say that I'm lucky that I sort of figured out how to get my stuff out there without major platforms, but I can't fault any artist for choosing to go with one of the major platforms and give up their independence.
Yeah.
Because it seems that's the only, I don't know any indie artists that can do it without the major platforms.
Yeah,
Can you
I
think
think,
of any at the top of your head?
I mean, I have a good friend of mine,
Yes.
Francisco Alarcon. He's also done a lot of independent drops, right?
Yes.
But he has also, like you, has collaborated sometimes with some platforms, with some galleries. But I think he's also been doing this for a while. It's kind of, I don't think maybe 2 decades, not sure if 2 decades, but a lot of time. Maybe he's in a position where he can do that, while new artists, it's much more complicated, right? I've seen also artists that actually want to work their way up to work with these galleries and these centralized institutions, right? In a way, it's kind of a recognition, right? That they were able to collaborate with these galleries. But yeah, I also I don't know. It's a very interesting topic, and I think it will keep evolving, and it's more on the collector side of things, right? To make the decisions and to support independent artists as well. Yeah.
I mean, before anyone crucifies me, I obviously had Sotheby's, and I obviously do work with Christie's, and I obviously do work with Super Rare. But I mean, you'll notice the Super Rare is because I owe everything to Super Rare, and I think they've done an amazing thing for the space and decentralization. And I will always mint as much as I can on Super Rare. And Christie's and Sotheby's, I don't know if people have noticed, I go there for my physicals. So if it's digital, Super Rare. If it's physical, Christie's and Sotheby's.
And if you
but
want
even that's a little decentralized because it's not a gallery. And I have gotten gallery offers.
Yeah.
I have galleries inquire, and I sort of turn them down. Maybe I sometimes regret that, but sometimes regret it. But I have. And
why do you reject some? What's the reason?
There's one gallerist in particular, and no one in the space knows this gallerist because this is not a crypto gallerist. And the gallerist was very interested in me and in my work until like I was tepid, and I was like, and then the gallerist demanded that if I was to work with them, they would take over my sales, and all my sales would go through them, and I'd have to give up independence. And they had some sales lined up. And I said, I can't do that, but I can give you like, hey, why don't I carve out this specific spot, like physicals? Why don't I carve out physicals? I cannot sell out physicals except through you, but I can do my digital stuff. This kind of angered them. And to the point of they're saying, it's like, do you know what kind of deal you're turning down? Every artist in the world would beg for this deal. And I was like, I get it, but I'm independent. And I tried to be as polite and possible as like, I'll carve it out. You'll have full control of my physicals. And I got ghosted like that. Went from being the biggest fan of Van Arman work, think I'm the second coming of, I don't know what, like we're going to take the art world by story because this is the ultimate AI art. I went from that to like me being like, I'm not sure I want to do this deal with you, to like, you'll never work in this town again. Wow. And like, so
that's tough. That's tough. Yeah.
But see, I'm lucky enough that I'm established and confident enough in myself that I was like, I don't really need them. But can you imagine smaller, newer artists going through that? They just have to sign up. They have no choice.
And was it like forever, or was it like 5 years exclusivity deal, or is it always like?
And we never got to a time frame. We never got to a time frame. Now that you bring it up, I'm assuming they thought it was like, we will represent you forever. But I don't know. I'm sure there's time frames on everything.
Yeah, but I mean,
we didn't discuss it.
It's like you are in a very particular place where you are working with kind of the state-of-the-art technology in the world, and you are also working with digital art, which is also quite new in the when you look at NFTs and the whole process. So it's very new, and I think it's good to have your options open, right? You don't know what can happen. It's also risky But I mean, you clearly have done it the right way. But you are right. If it is happens,
Made so many mistakes. I hear you. Thank you. Thank you for saying I've done the right. Man, the mistakes I've made. And
like,
I sometimes wish there was a gallerist to tell me not to make this mistake or that mistake.
which mistake was it? Can you share that?
Yeah, I'll share one. Let me think of some. All right, so I believe so heavily in the digital, I would give my physicals away. And so like like there, I gave away 128 physicals for AI Imagine Faces at an event called Views in New York City. If you bought a digital, I would send you the physical in the mail, no extra cost. That really, really upset some collectors
Oh
because like
wow.
Pindar's giving away art for free. It's not as exclusive as I thought. And then something interesting happened. I was just talking to some collectors. I'm trying to make them happy right now because I've had collectors that have supported me forever. And like, I had this thing that like if you buy the digital, you can have the physical. No one really, there's never value in the physical, but now the physicals are becoming very hot. My physicals, because they're painted by a robot. This is the AI world. One just sold a couple of weeks ago for 96,000.
Okay.
So now the physicals are being seen in the traditional art world is much more desirable. So everyone wants these physicals. But the problem is I've made some agreements where I can't give away art anymore, just for people, like I won't sign up with that gallerist that's going to say I control, but I had to make some deals where I'm like, okay, that's fine. I won't give stuff away anymore. That's not how I want to operate, but it's the reality of the situation. I should never have given away physicals for free. I'm going to continue to do all this feel worry. I'm going to continue to do my postcards and print incentives, but the actual physicals painted by the robots, I can't give away for free anymore.
No, makes sense. I mean, I can see how physicals for a digital artist, the physicals is kind of a second phase, right? And as you said, since your work in particular, it's made by robots, the physical has this kind of the process of painting it has something that the digitals don't have in a way. Not sure if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like because we can see the robots on the back, right? So that process is in your art in particular is unique.
Yeah.
Interesting. And talking about the process, Pindar. So these machines, what are they? How did you build them? Is there a website you used to buy them? You build them by your own? How does the robot printing work?
I'll tell you guys something. This is like a paperweight I have on my desk. This is probably the second robot head I built. You can see it's built with that's a dishwasher solenoid. That
Yeah.
goes, that gets and then lift up and brush wood pieces, piece of get in the hardware store, put onto a tip. So in the beginning, 20 years ago, I used to build them from scratch, like going to the junkyard, finding pieces at the hardware store. I did that for about 10 years. Yeah. I did that
Wow.
for about 10 years. And then some robot companies started getting interested. It's like, hey, if you use our robots and show them, we'll give you robots. So I started getting 7 bots. I got 7 bots. I got ST Robotics behind me. And so it went from very simple, very rudimentary XY tables, lifting up and putting down brushes, taking photos as they were going, looking at the photo, deciding where to put the next brush. That was all the AI. To my most recent one. My recent one's right over my shoulder there. And that one it's gone fully agentic. So let's take one step back and say, why are these specials? Why aren't these robots printers? And I talked about it earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a printer, you give it commands and it executes and prints your image with CMYK ink. My robots used to do the exact same thing, but they would pick up paint from a bunch of wells next to the canvas, and it would paint. And then I thought to myself a long time ago. One time I went to work, and I came home. I started to paint, came home, and the painting was half done. I didn't understand what happened, and I saw that somewhere halfway through the painting of the robot, the brush fell off. I don't know why. And I don't even remember why. But I saw hot paint and I was like, this thing is so dumb. It's continuing to paint, even though there's no brush on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is just a printer. And so I was like, it should know if it doesn't have a brush and stop painting.
Yeah.
Or it should know what colors are there. So that's when I added the camera. And then I added the camera. I was like, it's cool. It's watching itself. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I can actually calibrate. It can take a brush. You can dip the brush into the well and make a brush stroke. And say, okay, my brush stroke is a 1/4 inch wide. So I'm going to use that to paint the rest of my canvas. So the first thing I did was literally self-calibration. This camera is going to look at what brushstroke was doing and either paint longer or shorter with each brushstroke, depending on that. And I was like, you know what? I can do other cool stuff. And I started adding more and more AI And before you know it, it's always stuck at 24 for a longest time. Before you knew it, I had 24 different algorithms working as a team. And as the robot would paint, it would refer to these 24 algorithms and use them to decide what to do next. And that's when I say agentic. And the first time I got written up in academia was there's this other robot that does similar work, takes a picture of what it's painting and uses the picture called E. David by Deussen, and is in Germany. And they wrote a paper, and the first time I realized that people were looking at my work this closely was I was cited in the paper as another example of a robot that had feedback loops. And they're called feedback loops. Make some marks, see what the marks are doing, and based on those marks, make more marks. And so that's where it's been for a while. And it was just doing that and doing some AI, k-means clustering, max nets, a bunch of smaller AI algorithms. Until I read about in 2015-ish or 2014-ish, I read about Deep Blue. I'm sorry. AlphaGo, which is a predecessor of Deep Blue. And AlphaGo beat Lisa Doll in Go. And I was like, and everyone's saying his moves were creative. I was like, what do you mean creative? And then I went deep and I was like, okay, deep learning's working now. And that's when my robots became truly creative. They were smart. They were AI. They were agentic all the way back in 2010. But around 2015 is when they became creative. And that's because I started using CNN neural nets. I started using my first GANs. I started doing stuff that I was like, wow, this robot's imagining things. It's not working from imagery anymore. Wow. And so like at that point, I started adding some of the 24, as mentioned, there's 24 agents. I had an agent for GANs. I had an agent for facial recognition. I added an agent for style transfer, like paint like Picasso or paint like me or paint like yourself. It had a big collection of its own art, and that style transfer could make it paint like itself. And that's where it went from there. And it's just been steadily building, adding, improving. And so I had these 24 agents, and I always call them agents. I've been talking, if you look at my earlier writings, you'll say I'm always calling agents. Agents are crazy now. No one ever understood it. I really couldn't get to people that what an agent was. That's why I'm really excited now that agents are hot. But it was still confusing. I'd be like, my robot takes a picture, then the agents fight for control and decide what the next brush stroke is, and then it makes brush. It's still too complicated. So I've simplified, and this is recently in the last 2 years. I've simplified it from being 24 agents to being 2 agents. Okay. And I've categorized. I've put those 24 agents. Actually, it's probably more than 24 now because I used to keep it at 24, but now I'm sad. I took the expressive creative AI, which was like, the expressive things, and I put into an expressive agent. And I put the technical AI, just stuff like measure contrast, measure composition, measure how busy a canvas is in parts, and put it into a technical agent. So now you have this expressive agent trying to be expressive, and you have a technical agent trying to be precise. Wow. And you can see that on the robot behind me. The robot arm takes care of brush strokes. The expressive agents control the robot arm. The technical agents control an XY plotter. And so when you look at my work, and you'll see the recent one I just sold to Delrond, you'll see there's some very precise line work in there, very precise work around the eyes. All that's done with the technical agent. Then you'll see dripping paint everywhere. And it looks like someone took a bucket and threw paint on it. And that's the creative, the robot arm. So now, instead of saying I got 24 agents, blah, blah, now I just say, I got an expressive robot that paints and a precise robot, technical robot drafts and then draws. Yeah. And go back and forth, paint a little, draw a little, paint a little, draw a little. And that's how the creativity arises. And you can actually see Delron's piece on the robot right now. I don't know how much focus it is, but.
And how do they, you have mentioned several times, they fight for control. Yeah. So how does this work? How do they win and take control? What's the process like?
They vote, they vote, and they all have I've got, it's interesting. It's because sometimes I turn up some of the algorithms, turn down all the algorithms have a weight between 0 and 100 or 0 and 99.
So they share control.
And I turn the weights up and weights down. That's me directing. And I was like, hey, pay a lot of attention to contrast this time. I'll turn that all the way up. Or pay attention to colors. I'll turn that up. And I was like, but ignore composition. I'll turn that down. Whatever. So first of all the agents have a weight of how loud they're screaming because they all want attention. And then when they start screaming, there's some that work as a group. And whoever screams the loudest, the composition, and the one I like to talk is it's simplest to see, and I should release it, is one that looks at contrast. It'll look at the canvas, it'll measure contrast in different areas, and might say, okay, contrast is okay. We should improve the contrast with 10%. 10%, I'm 10% confident we need to improve the contrast. Another one might say, hey, this is getting really muddy down here. The color one might be say, hey, this is getting really muddy down here. It's turning, the colors are turning into a brown. I'm going to raise an alarm at 60% that we need to get the complementary colors back. And then, and imagine that 24 agents voting like that, and it goes through and says, okay, 60%, we need the complementary colors back. I'm going to listen to that agent, and that agent takes over and makes suggestions, and the robot follows those suggestions.
That's fascinating.
It's really simple. It's really simple. I mean, it's like very similar to how an artist decides what to do next on a canvas.
But one question about the feedback process, because I can understand that there is a feedback, and in every iteration they learn something or they evolve. But when it comes to art, because I've done some of these, machine learning algorithms for predictions, right? For very technical stuff, predicting, prices or predicting different things. But there is a clear answer, right? When it comes to art, there is no right or wrong. So it's more you are the one trying to guide what's right or wrong, or they come up with what's right or wrong in a way and try to improve in every feedback round.
Let me just see if I can find. Is there time for me to find you a video and we can walk through it? All the things. You guys know what's right or wrong. That's why this is one of the craziest things, and this is actually one of the things that's you asked earlier, things that have helped me and hurt me. One of the things that has hurt me in my art is I've been brutally honest. Meaning, like, if the robot makes a piece of crap art, if I set out to make art and the robot and the AI makes something that's junky, I publish it. Like no other artist does that. Most artists, they only publish the creme de la creme, the most beautiful of the artworks. But for me, it's interesting what the AI is doing. So I'm going to release everything. Well, I have been. I think it's a mistake now. I wish I hadn't. And, and it led to reviews. I once got reviews like, when you walk into the show, it looks like, you're at a high school, art show. But then you realize robots made it, and it's much more interesting. And I was like, this was supposed to be a good review, but it was a horrible review because they just said my art looks like it was made by high school students. But that was me being honest with the AI, because I want to show people what the AI is doing. And if you look at it over the 20 years of my art, you can say, wow, it's gotten better. So let me show you. Give me a second to find something, and I'll share my screen. What would it be called? It would be called Van Arman. And this is talk about Turing test. This is cool. Let's see. Oh yeah, this is cool. Okay, I'm going to share my screen here.
There should be a button there.
All right, let me share my screen. And you're going to watch. How long is this? 20 seconds. We're going to watch in 20 seconds.
Perfect.
Painting, screen, window, Chrome tab. Here we go. Is that sharing Chrome tab? Do you see that?
Yes. Yeah, we can see
This is Gum Commission. This is fascinating because this painting, every single decision here, this is what Agentic's all about. Every single decision from start to finish was decided by the robot in this. And then it was put into his traveled the world as part of a commission by the company Gum, where they commissioned my robot and I think 8 other artists to make pieces of art. And they let people decide which one was made by a robot. They put up a lineup and of all the artworks, the 9 artworks shown, and maybe we'll find some that in a second to show you. This had the best score, meaning no one thought a robot made this piece of art you're about to see. But it was so agentic that it started off with a portrait, a portrait shoot, or what do you call it? A sitting. My wife sat with it in front of, I guess, her windows, and you'll watch. It took a bunch of pictures of her, found the best picture, and then painted it from there. And look how crazy this goes. Let's start the video. So it starts with a photo shoot, picks its favorite photo, adds a style transfer. The style, as it's working, the style transfer is going back into itself. It's doing some design work. It's doing, oh, that's crazy. It's painting, I think, another style transfer. Yeah, and then, and you can see let's start that again, and then we'll pause it. We'll pause it right at the end here.
There.
Oh, I don't know how to use YouTube.
There.
You can see.
Yeah.
So on the right is what it's thinking, and on the left is what got painted. Not just the amount of decisions made as it's painting, when it's live in its mind, trying to make the canvas look more like what it's in its mind.
Yeah.
just a lot of creativity there. Is this an artist? No, I'm the artist. But it is absolutely creative. I made not one single decision from start to finish on the creation of this robot. And look, where did it come up with this design? Gum Gum provided 6 paintings to us and said, here's 6 paintings that we like and we want to use for inspiration. And that ended up, and I had those 6 paintings as inputs, and this ended up in the style of one of those 6 paintings. I think it's de Kooning or something, but I'm not sure. I don't even remember.
Yeah, and what's exciting is that, I mean, it's painting, right? So everything that happened in these 20 seconds, so it's still there, right? It's not that it can replace what it already painted, right? So at the final result is a combination of everything. So that's quite interesting. And Pindar, so 2 decades working with robots, working with technology, and we have seen over the last year an explosion in tools. Have you, like, your tools, the technology you use, has it evolved over the past 2 years, 1 year, as fast as what we have seen in the market?
Yeah. And better, because I used to only use GANs and style transfer. Now I'm using diffusion models, but it's so easy now to do AI that it's like, I was telling you those agents. I added one agent that does sentiment analysis. And quite literally, you can talk to the robot while it's painting, and it will feed off of your emotions and start painting emotionally with emotionality. I don't want to say emotions, with emotionality off of what you're talking to it with. And how long did that take me to set up with Claude? That took about 2 hours. What's kind of funny is I'm so blessed to have been doing this for so long, because if I had to start from scratch, nothing. I just had my robots and the manual of how to run my robots and make paintings. I could rewrite everything, 20 years of code, probably within a month, possibly even within a week.
Wow.
It's that good. And that's like, like anyone that's intimidated by programming or AI, you shouldn't be. Just go talk to ChatGPT. It's going to program for you better than it's programmed for me and with 20 years of experience. I joke with all my buddies that are software developers. I was like, don't let management find out. They cannot find out.
Yeah, and I think that, you see it from the point of an artist, but as you said, software developers, and maybe even, I think many professions, I think it's a common fear for many people, right? That AI will replace their job, and who knows to what extent, but it's definitely going to happen. And
it does. I hope it does. I hope it replaces all of our jobs, all of ours. I think that's I think it's crazy that humans are probably 10 times more productive today than they were in 2020 or 2000. We're probably 10 times more productive. Developers are 100 times more productive. Yeah, we're still working 40-hour work weeks. I don't know, when are we going to switch it where we're working 2 days a week and 5 days off? And when I say off, I'm not saying humans are lazy. I'm saying, I think, like I say, I'm living a dream right now where I spend all my days working on art. And I wish this upon everyone else, that if your thing is to make music, make art, do nothing, play video games, I don't care. Read books, doesn't matter. I don't think you're lazy. I just think you're relieved from being a slave wage, which is basically all of us, which is what I was, I feel like, when I was in a 40-hour work week.
Right. Yeah, when people think about the consequences of AI, what you just described is what is the positive side of things, that humans can just do what they want, right? And they don't have to worry about salaries or earning money, etc. In this line of the conversation, there is also a lot of backlash from AI, and I wonder, somebody like you, how much of negative reception have you received during your career when you mentioned you are an AI, you create art with AI? Is it
early on a lot, but recently not much. Recently is kind of cool. Recently it's been switched. I used to get hate for being in AI. Now I get hate for being in crypto. And a lot of it, actually, I don't think in the bubble of crypto we realize how bad it is for people that aren't into crypto, what they think of us, which is something I'm working very hard to correct. But for example, the critique of, like, let's go back and wade into these AI agents that have decided to become AI artists, and they're selling their artwork. And then, the critique is like, oh, if you're in, the critique from academia is like, oh, I love this new AI agent selling all its artwork. But tell me, why did it convert all the ETH into USD and then send it to Coinbase? What was the AI agent's motivation for that? And then you realize it's all a bunch of malarkey. These AI agents that are extracting and doing meme coins And they aren't actual AI agents. They're masquerading as an AI agent because they are AI agents, I'm sorry, but they are not actual AI artists because an AI artist would not convert all of its sales to USD and then send it to Coinbase. I don't know what it would do. I don't think an AI artist would even be concerned about selling because what's AI have to do? What's it need with money? It needs compute power. And by the way, there are some excellent projects. There's one excellent project where it's like, the AI isn't going for money, it's trying to get more and more compute power, which I think is interesting. So I've gone way off topic on my little rant.
No, but makes sense. It makes sense.
That's. I have to go back. I used to get hate mail. I used to get a weekly email saying it's hard enough being an artist. Why are you trying to replace us? Wow. I remember one in particular. Someone in that gallery pulled me over and was like, I don't know whether to be really impressed with this or disgusted with you. I'll always remember that comment by another artist. What they didn't realize is it was never about replacing artists. But there is a lot of frustration among artists that you can't just make art and sell it. And there's and I openly admit this, the top 1% of artists are all about the same. Our skill and our vision and we're all about the same. But even so, the top 1% of artists, only 0.01 make money. Yeah. 1 in 1,000 of the top 1% of artists make money. What are those? Those are the ones that are good at business.
Yeah.
And so that being said, all these artists frustrated is like, why am I competing with AI? You're not competing with AI. You're competing with, I don't know what you're competing with, but it's not
the
AI.
System. I think the system, it's just it's very hard. It's very challenging as you describe when you look at the numbers, right? Pindar,
I
know.
From that book, I might be getting the exact number wrong, but 19,000 new artists show up in New York City every year. I remember that number, 19,000. 19,000 new artists show up in New York every year. The amount of artists making money in New York, I think, is probably 1,000. Okay, so 18,000. So and every year, I think active, there's every year that many people quit because 19,000 are coming in and only 1,000 are making money. Basically, most of that 19,000, maybe 18,900, don't make it to the second year.
Yeah,
it's brutal. It's brutal and it's horrible. And
or you have to do it on the side, right? And then you maybe are not putting enough time into it, enough effort. Maybe you don't have the time to really focus on your art. Like in your case, I mean, you have to really spend a lot of time working on the robotic side of things, but then on the algorithms and thinking about it. Maybe it's a question like you have to do deep hours. Create these algorithms, right, of concentration, right? So you need time to focus on this. So if you had to have a job or you had to do other things to earn money, it's really hard for you to get to your best level.
Well, vast majority of active artists it's a side thing. Most of them are professors or at art school teaching other artists. Artists that don't do anything but art is so rare. It's so absurdly rare. And then what's interesting is the better, I have to say this, so I do agree, is like the best art comes from that caliber of artist. The ones that are doing it as a side job because they don't have to worry about sacrificing their artistic vision. So if you're a professor teaching art at a major art school at Yale or at Columbia or I don't know all the major art schools, but more power to you because you give a little time to the man and teach other artists how to make art, and then you're free to make the highest quality art that exists, art that's made without financial concerns. That's why I think, when an AI artist does appear, it's going to be some excellent art, whether or not we understand it, because I don't think there's going to be a financial concern.
Yeah, no, makes sense.
I don't think AI is going to have a scarcity mindset, or I don't think AI is going to be impressed by my crypto punk, or isn't the current conversation Rolexes? In our space is like buy a Rolex. If you're 20, go into debt and buy a Rolex. I don't think AI cares.
Yeah, no, they have other. I mean, we don't really know, but they will have other interests for sure, rather than the human interest. Pindar, so we have been talking for an hour, but I really want to know what you are currently working on. And you mentioned there is a show, an upcoming show soon. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know how much I can reveal, and we'll talk about this. Like they're going to announce it, but you know what? Let's just coordinate so we don't do this podcast before. But NVIDIA has always been a champion of the AI arts, and I love how they champion the AI arts because they don't fall for the malarkey. They don't call for first AI artist. they actually shy away from that, and they don't like that narrative because they agree with me. And a lot of us in this thing is like, when an AI artist comes, it's not going to be controlled by a human. So any human claiming they have an AI artist is basically the artist cosplaying that they're AI, pretending to be AI. And that's probably the case right now because AI art, I think most people is all about intent and an artist being the author.
Yep.
And so if any AI makes something, unless it had the intent and it was the author, it's basically the person that created the AI is the author and the intent. So NVIDIA is having a major AI exhibition with eyes on breakthroughs that have happened over the couple of years. And you can see over my left shoulder is some of my AI imagined faces. This project I did back in 2017, 2018, where I had one agent. I split up my sub agents again. I had one agent painting, a bunch of agents painting faces, using GANs to imagine faces and paint them. And I had another agent that was basically just doing facial recognition. And as soon as it recognized the face, it stopped the other agents. So, like they had that voting power. When do I stop? Because I always thought it was interesting if AI decides when to stop, because that's actually probably the biggest decision about a piece of art that any one artist makes.
When
when
it's
do
done.
I stop?
Okay.
Yeah, when it's done. So I found this way of having AI say when it's done, when I can see a face. So that was interesting. And so I did this, and you can see it's sideways, by the way. The faces are sideways. I don't know if you can see them.
Yeah.
But we're going to release 9 of those physicals only. I'll get the numbers. I'll do a report. I think I made less than 32 or 40. I made less than 40. I've sent several out to collectors. So I'm down to, in my personal collection, I'm down to 21, less than half. And I have 18, I'm 21. Yeah, there's 3 of them there. I'm creating another 3x3 polyptych that will be on auction as part of this NVIDIA Christie's event.
Nice. Sounds super
And it's
exciting.
going to be all the top AI artists. It's going to be a really cool event. And people are always asking me how they get these physicals. And I have very few left. I have, like I just told you, I have 21 left. Yeah, 21 left.
And so it's going to be in New York, right?
And I'm
Awesome.
sending you the date.
Yeah, we'll
But
include in the show notes.
Sure.
I want to see. Yeah, NVIDIA, I mean, they have done an amazing job, right, when it comes to the hardware side of things.
I mean, the biggest company in the world right now.
Yeah.
I was surprised by that. I was like, surely Apple is, or Microsoft. It's actually
it's NVIDIA.
NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing that's going to be. Let me see if I can zoom in. So this is the polyptych that's going to be as part of that show, and here they are getting painted.
So
here's it. Wow.
Okay. Wow, nice.
So this is a different collection, but back then I did a lot of these collections, and cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And we'll coordinate so everybody will find the information in the show notes. Pindar, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for sharing your journey and all the knowledge. And looking forward to your show. Not sure if I always like to ask artists and guests, 3 other artists that inspire them or that, are doing great work. Current artists, could be AI artists or anybody that you find like an inspiration.
Yeah. It's just funny. It's like I've talked a lot about artistic AI artists and creativity. I would say it all goes back to Harold Cohen. And people that don't know who Harold Cohen is, after I made my first painting robots in 2005, I was really impressed with myself. But it took me all of a couple of months to realize that there was this artist named Harold Cohen that made one in 1970. And I cold called him. Back then, there weren't many AI artists, let alone robot artists. So I would just call. Whenever I found a new artist, I'd call and say hi. I cold called him, and that led to an unlikely friendship where he's probably the biggest influence on everything I do, from the fact that I don't give my robots human names. I mean, he even like Harold Cohen was so adamant about and so pure to what was happening that he would right now he'd be really angry at all the people saying that there's AI artists and I mean, like, I wish he was alive. He died 4 or 5 years ago. I know it. He died during it. There's an interesting story about how I found out he died. He was helping me write my TEDx talk, and then we got in an argument over what I could say about how creative my robots were being. And then he ghosted me, or I thought he ghosted me. And like 6 months later, I got a call or email from his assistant saying that sorry that he hadn't responded, but Harold Cohen had gone to hospital and passed away. And it was a sad moment for me because Harold Cohen passed away, but I was like, oh, he didn't hate me. It's like I thought he hated me, and that's why he stopped talking to me. But he was very influential in the fact that it's like, be true about what the AI is doing. Do not give some false narrative that the AI has a personality or is a human or like, wants to make art for us or has studied the Renaissance and wants to reinvent it, and one of the big things he always did was like, he's why I've lost so many, I'll put it this way, I've lost so many opportunities to be in auctions, to be in galleries, to be in interviews because a reporter or someone will call us like, hey, we hear that you have an AI artist and we find that really interesting. I'll be like, hey, I want to tell you something. When AI artists exist, and we've talked about this whole talk, it won't be like my robots. And then they're like, okay, thanks. And then like I see the article because I'm following all this, and they found another artist who's willing to say that their robot with a wig on it is an artist, an AI artist. And I'm like, oh, I could have been in that magazine. But I'm not. And it's because Harold Cohen was very specific about don't mislead people with hype and lies. Like talk about what's beautiful about creativity. He hated the word creativity. Talk about what's beautiful happening in AI, and that's all you need. You don't need the hype. You don't need the gimmick. You don't need. So that's why I would say, for better or worse, major influence on me, and why my robots are called stuff like Feedback instead of Picasso Bot.
Makes sense. Nice.
And I'm careful to name like him. Funny is he had Aaron, and but Aaron very specifically was the software, not the robots. And same with me. I named the software that runs the robots because, I could have new software next week running those two robots behind me. And that's what's important. The brains, not the physical manifestation. So that was a long answer. I would say, definitely Harold Cohen. He's had, I don't know if he's still at the Whitney, but he had some exhibition at the Whitney last year, probably still going on. And he is responsible for a lot of my outlooks on what creativity is, how much machines can be creative, how he taught me to think about how machines might see, all sorts of interesting stuff. And we talked a lot on the phone.
That's fantastic. No, that's great. That's a great inspiration. I mean, the story, of course, is sad that he passed away while giving you feedback on your talk, but it's very exciting. And I think makes a lot of sense, especially if you're a purist on what's happening, to explain as close as possible to what's really happening and not build on the hype that we're seeing. Pindar, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for your time. And let's stay in touch. Maybe we can do this in the future again and see what's the state of these agents.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to change all by next year.
Yeah.
I wonder what the buzz is going to be next year. It'll be interesting.
Awesome. Take care, Pindar.
Talk to you later.